Hey again, thanks for joining me. In this video, we're going to take a look at render performance, and it's an interesting one, this. I kind of caught it by chance, and it's on the National Rail website. I say that it's currently not because it's an advert, or it's related to an advert, and as you know, adverts, they sometimes come and go. So what I've done instead is I've just saved the page when I noticed the bug occurring. And possibly if you reload the page enough, you'll see it, but to make life easier, I've just saved it locally. Here it is, here's the save version of the National Rail website, and we're going to open up DevTools. And one of the points of this video is to kind of highlight a workflow-based performance diagnosis. So rather than letting the feature that I want to demonstrate drive the video, it's kind of the other way around. It's as if there's this genuine bug and we're genuinely trying to fix it. So imagine that we're, performance consultants, we're developers on the team of this website, and we've been tasked with improving the performance here. One of the first things I do straight off the bat is open up, let's see, the performance monitor. And if you've not used this before, hopefully it's fairly intuitive to you, as you can see. During the lifecycle of the page, these graphs may go up and down, and it's really cool because you can actually navigate through the website and this will persist across page navigation. So you can really see how things are progressing performance-wise. In this case, when I came here, nothing really stood out as being terrible. So I'll close the performance monitor, but I just wanted to show you because this is often a good place to start. If you see, for example, that if layouts are spiking constantly, that's definitely a place you want to investigate. Maybe there's inefficient JavaScript, which is mutating HTML elements on the page, and that's triggering layout. Anyway, we'll close that and we'll head on over to the performance panel. Right, we were just looking at the performance monitor, but now we'll look at the performance panel. And I will close the console panel. And again, this is kind of open-ended, and we've been tasked with just generally improving the performance of this website. There may be nothing wrong with it, and that's fine. But in this case, we come here for just a sort of, as if a second opinion. And I just scroll the page a little. You want to keep your performance recording short, by the way, it helps a lot. Let's close everything. Remember, with this, focus on columns. So each column represents kind of a different performance entity. We've got frames, and that gives you really helpful screenshots during the recording. We've got main. Now, there are some very obvious things to pay attention to here in main. There's like 153 milliseconds for a function call. Surprise, surprise, it's a tracker. As if by random, I just looked at the GPU, and it's sort of an area that I never really look at. And I was like, 20 milliseconds for the GPU. Relatively speaking, it's not terrible, but I still thought it was kind of, interestingly slow. So I won't talk too much about the theory as to why elements get promoted to the GPU, but long story short, browsers may decide for a variety of criteria that an element is more efficiently rendered on the GPU as opposed to the CPU. What would be great is if I could click there, and I could go to the summary pane and get loads of helpful information. In this case, I get no information. So if we open up something called the layers panel, right? I assume this is quite new to people because, I rarely use this panel. Again, it was as if by chance I kind of found this bug. Yeah, this is pretty much what I saw. It kind of gives you as it sounds like, it shows you the layers in a kind of 3D view. I think you can, that's at rotate mode, and you can do all that business. Now, when I first arrived here, the first time I was looking at this, I saw this. And when you look at something for so long and something just does not look right, but you can't put a finger on what it is? Well, get this. I saw these, this black border, and I was like, oh, that's like a layers panel artifact. That's nothing to do with the web page. But then you zoom out, and this black line gets longer and longer and longer. And you get this football pitch of a layer, which is absolutely bizarre. I've never seen anything like it before. And you might have even noticed a tiny little... What is this? I think, is this like skip to main content? As a little challenge for yourself, maybe have a think as to why that may have occurred. And the layers panel is broke. So Alt and R to reload DevTools when it gets into a funny state like that. This isn't really what I wanted to show you. Even that is kind of interesting as to why that's happening. What I want to show you is if we zoom out, what you can do in DevTools is you can click on layers and it will kind of show you what that element is, and it'll give you some information. Let's try and figure out what's happening here. First of all, we can confirm that the layer is indeed massive. Yeah, that's 24,000 pixels by almost 10,000. Compositing reasons, we'll get to that. Memory estimate, this is quite interesting. So it's almost a gigabyte of memory, and I don't know how accurate this is. Obviously, it's an estimate. It says it right there. So I come on over to here, more tools and task manager, and then definitely memory footprint is It's not a gigabyte, which is what this claims, but GPU process to me does look unusually high. So I don't know if that's related, but if it is, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Anyway, let's have a look at this compositing reasons. Okay, I had to read this a few times to understand it. Secondary layer to contain any normal flow and positive z-index or z-index contents on top of a negative z-index layer. To me, this is like kind of a funny way of basically saying the element that you're looking at has children with a negative z-index, I think. And therefore, internally, for reasons we don't necessarily know, internally Chrome has decided to promote that onto its own layer. Okay, no problem. So what I'll do is I'll right click here and say reveal an elements panel, and that should take me straight to the problem, right? No, not so much. As you can see, it's taken me to the HTML root element, and there's nothing really here I can do anything with. So most likely, this HTML element has a child which has a negative z-index. If I go back to layers, it doesn't really give me a clue as to what the element is, but that's not a problem because it gives me a chance to show you something cool. If I do a project-wide search for z-index, hopefully we can find that element. So Command, Alt, and F. And you can see I've done this before. So originally I searched for z-index : and then you don't really find anything. You find too much, but nothing that kind of helps us without really diving into it. Space and a hyphen to find a negative z-index. And indeed, we find something. I'm going to close this drawer, and you see it's actually found what I believe is the page we're looking at. Yeah, that is the same HTML file. Yep, perfect. And I'll print that. And I think we've lost that, so... Oh yeah, there it is. Maybe it was just off the screen and I couldn't see it. All I wanted to do that for is just to find the element that we need to kind of have a look at in question, and that element is sovrn one tag add. Back to elements panel. Okay, turns out in the elements panel you can search by selector, so I'll do that right now. And this is possibly not the one, I don't think. That's it, 1 out of 3. So I can hit enter again, and I don't think it's, yeah, it's the last one. I'm gonna take a very naive approach at fixing this. In reality, if I was working on this project, I would probably try and understand why this element has a negative z-index right here of -58. Is there any significance in that number as well? It's good to investigate that. And finally, if I do change that to 0, does that break stuff? Possibly, but possibly not. Okay, in this case, I just want to kind of show you the effects that has and how we can visualize that in the layers panel. I've changed that z-index to 0. And with a number of 0 for the z-index, I do wonder what will happen with the layers. Okay, so ignoring this other big layer, which I cannot explain at this moment, if you do notice, and if the scrolling wasn't so stuttery, so it's a bit hard to navigate around, what you will notice is that massive, what was it, like 25,000 pixel layer has actually just disappeared. Most likely because we haven't satisfied to Chrome in this case that it's necessary at all to promote it onto its own layer, which is a good thing, right? That's pretty much all I wanted to show in this video. But all that being said, there is still, as you can see right here, there is still more improvements to be made. Maybe you can investigate this layer as a little exercise for yourselves. It looks like it's a different compositing reason, so that does make it a bit more interesting. Now, I know I covered a few bits and pieces there, so just very quickly, Command-Shift-P, show performance monitor. Things were standing out to me, but it was nothing I necessarily wanted to pursue in this particular occasion. So I went on over to the performance panel, started recording, scrolled for like a second, stopped recording, because I really want my recording short and sweet. Nothing was really sticking out again. Don't get me wrong, there is stuff to investigate, but some of these JavaScript related things I can definitely save for other videos. In this case, I had a look at GPU and I was just kind of curious as to why there's like 28 milliseconds being spent on GPU activity in this one little event right here, as well as all the other events, of course. So based on what I'd seen previously, I thought it'd be useful to come on over to the layers panel and observe this, again, what I like to call a football pitch of a layer. That's what it reminds me of. And yeah, clicking on that kind of gives you this really useful information. But more importantly, it gives you the element in question, and it gives you a kind of compositing reason which you then have to use your web development experience to figure out. Back at the elements panel, rather than through trial and error having to find the elements with the negative z-index, I Command-Alted F and I did a search for z-index, hyphen to represent the negative figure. Something did show up. I did a search for that element in the elements panel, Command F, do a search for that selector, and it turns out there were a few, weren't there? and it was possibly this last one. Finally, let me just close that drawer. Finally, we find the z-index property and property value, change that to 0, like the naive bug fixer that I am, and come back to the layers panel, and things are looking better. If you are interested in more videos like this where we focus on practical things, especially on popular websites, do let me know so I can make more of these. And if you want me to make more of these videos in general, please like and subscribe to show your support. Thank you very much.